Okay, so let's dive in here. For years now, the whole digital landscape, it's really been defined by these massive centralized platforms, hasn't it?
Absolutely. The big few dictating the rule.
Yeah, controlling the algorithms and basically monetizing all your data.
Exactly. But that whole foundational structure, it seems like it's facing a pretty radical challenge now, an architectural one.
Right. We're talking about a really systemic shift, aren't we? Away from that centralized control.
And towards something more like decentralized ownership. Yeah.
That's really the core of the sources we're looking at today, isn't it?
It is. This isn't just, another app launching. It's about a company, Linkspreed, providing the actual infrastructure for this shift.
So we're doing a deep dive specifically into their Web4 Studio platform.
And crucially, how they're translating that whole Web4 philosophy into, practical enterprise-ready tech.
And our focus today, the real mission, is zeroing in on what feels like a turning point for that platform.
You mean the latest release, version 3.2?
Exactly. If the initial idea was the philosophy, this v3.2 release looks like the professionalization step, the scaling update.
The thing that makes independent social media actually viable for, say, big organizations and serious adoption.
Yeah. What's really striking is this core promise Web4 Studio has always had.
You mean returning full control? Data, content, governance, back to the users, back to the network creator.
Right. And the sources we have make it pretty clear that v3.2 isn't just a small tweak.
No, it feels much bigger. It's the release that really solidifies that promise, doesn't it? It takes the independent social network idea from maybe a niche concept
into something practical, scalable, or reality. So we've kind of structured our sources for today. We're going to kick things off with the big underlying concept.
Social networks as a service, SNaaS.
Right, SNaaS. And then we'll drill down into the 5 major technical and business updates that really define this v3.2 release.
Sounds good. Let's jump in.
Okay, SNaaS. Sounds familiar? A bit like SaaS, which we see everywhere.
Software as a service, yeah.
But applying that to something as complex as a modern social network, what exactly is social networks as a service in this Web4 context Linkspreed is building?
Well, at its core, SNaaS is really an innovative business model, but it's built on this idea of architectural decentralization.
Yeah.
It basically provides the whole stack, all the necessary bits and pieces, core components, modular tools, security frameworks, back-end services, everything you need.
To do what exactly?
To create, host, and manage your own dedicated standalone social network or, an online community. It's like infrastructure designed for empowerment.
So let's say I represent, a big industrial group or maybe a global education body or even a really specialized professional guild.
Right.
And I need a digital space that's like compliant, fits our brand, and is totally under our control. Without relying on the terms and conditions of one of the big giants, SNaaS gives me the complete pre-built engine room for that platform.
Precisely. And the real value proposition here is abstracting away the complexity.
Because running a social platform is incredibly complex, right?
Oh, absolutely. You and I know even a modestly sized, secure platform, it takes astronomical investment. Infrastructure scaling, features, security layers, moderation tools.
Yeah, the costs are huge.
So SNaaS abstracts away that massive technical complexity and the high initial cost. It gives you this ready-made modular framework.
Which effectively democratizes the ability to run a serious social network.
Exactly. It breaks down that barrier. Previously, only the Silicon Valley giants could really afford to play in this space,
So now the creators, the organizations, they can bypass all that infrastructure headache.
And focus purely on what actually creates value for them. Building the community, the content strategy, setting and enforcing their own policies.
That makes sense. And focusing on that is critical because the sources we have frame this Web4 SNaaS model as like a direct answer, an architectural fix almost, for the problems we've all seen with Web2.
Exactly. It's not just another competing product. It's presented as a competitive architecture designed to solve, the sources highlight 4 major structural problems.
Okay, let's break those down. The first one, and this feels like the defining point of this whole new era, is full control over data and governance.
Right. And this is where that old Web2 saying kind of dies, doesn't it? If you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Yeah, we've all heard that.
In those centralized systems, every click, every post, every bit of metadata, it's constantly being mined, aggregated, often sold or used for ads, way beyond what the user clearly agreed to.
So how does Web4 Studio's SNaaS change that?
With this approach, the network owner, the organization or creator actually paying for the service they maintain, direct sovereign control.
Sovereign control over what specifically?
Over all the user data, the database structures, even where the data physically resides, data residency. They control the where and the how of the data.
Okay, so that immediately cuts out the risk of some hidden third party mining your community's data for advertising?
Right. But let me pose a challenge here, playing devil's advocate based on how enterprises think.
Go for it.
If I'm running a big multinational network, let's imagine a hypothetical global manufacturing consortium, or GMC.
Okay, GMC.
How do I handle data residency compliance? If I have users in Europe under GDPR, others in Asia with different rules, doesn't decentralization make that harder, not easier?
That's a really critical point. And the sources suggest the solution is built into the architecture's flexibility.
How so?
Because the network creator controls that data layer. They choose the hosting location and the setup cloud, on-premise, whatever meets their specific compliance needs for each region. Linkspreed provides the software framework.
But the data itself remains the client's asset, under their control.
Exactly. And that same granular control extends right into community governance. The administrators set the rules, the moderation policies, even what features get prioritized. It fosters real ownership specific to their community's needs.
Okay, that makes sense. Which leads nicely into the second big benefit the sources highlight, independence from opaque algorithms.
Ah, yes, the algorithms.
Yep.
We hear so much about the polarizing effects, right? Centralized algorithms often designed just to maximize engagement, keep you scrolling.
Which often means pushing emotionally charged content, sometimes even extremist stuff, because it gets reactions.
Yeah, those algorithms are typically optimizing for commercial metrics, clicks, shares, comments. And that can lead straight to algorithmic bias, maybe even content manipulation.
Your experience is basically dictated by the platform's need to hit its financial targets for shareholders.
So what's the Slale solution here?
The sources call it algorithmic autonomy, which is a powerful idea.
Economy meaning?
Meaning the network creators define their own rules for how feeds are ranked, how content gets surfaced or promoted, what's visible.
Okay, so back to our GMC example, the Global Manufacturing Consortium.
Right. If they're running a network focused on engineering innovation.
Their algorithm wouldn't prioritize angry debates.
Yeah.
It might prioritize, say, peer reviews of new designs, or documented failures and lessons learned, solution blueprints.
Exactly. Stuff that serves the community's actual mission, not just generating clicks. It ensures the network supports productivity or education or whatever the specialized interest is.
Completely divorced from the incentives driving commercial engagement maximization. That feels like a massive competitive advantage for an organization.
It really could be. Now, the third benefit targets the user experience directly. Tailored communities with bespoke features.
The argument here being that the big generic social media platforms are kind of one size fits all.
And therefore, they don't really fit any specialized group particularly well. The sources make that point quite strongly.
So if you're building, say, a professional organization, you need professional grade tools, not just cat videos and memes.
Precisely. SNaaS lets the network creators pick and choose or even build features specific to their audience needs.
What kind of features are we talking about? The sources mentioned some examples.
Yeah, things like integrated digital asset trading for finance groups, maybe advanced polling tools for research communities, or even highly specialized content formats that might include things like built-in compliance logging.
Things you'd never see on a general platform.
Exactly. And beyond just features, this architectural independence allows them to implement internal policies or membership structures that are just impossible on the big platforms.
Like what?
Well, imagine a medical network that requires verification of professional licenses before anyone can even get access.
Okay, yeah, that adds a layer of trust.
Or maybe a financial community that uses something called token gating.
Token gating.
Yeah, where you can only access certain content or groups if your digital wallet holds a specific token or digital asset.
Right.
Proving membership or status cryptographically.
Wow. Okay, so that really transforms it from just a chat space into potentially a regulated, high-integrity professional environment.
That's the idea. Customization equals higher value for specialized groups.
And that brings us to the fourth benefit, which touches on something more existential: resilience to censorship.
This feels like it's at the heart of the Web4 philosophy, right? A core defense against single points of failure or control.
How does SNaaS deliver that resilience?
It comes from enabling independent hosting. The network owner can choose to host on geographically distributed cloud servers or even their own dedicated servers.
Not reliant on one company's server farm.
Exactly. Couple that independent hosting with a decentralized architecture. It inherently builds in censorship resistance.
So if some large entity, maybe even a government, tries to shut down the network or force content removal,
there isn't just one server plug to pull or one single legal entity to pressure easily.
The sources really emphasize this point, that decentralized control over the software and the data makes the whole network significantly more robust against external pressures.
Yeah, ensuring continuity and, well, freedom of communication, which is vital for certain communities around the world operating in volatile political or regulatory climates.
Okay, so that SNaaS foundation, the architecture, is clearly powerful. But now let's pivot. Let's shift to the real focus here, version 3.2.
Right, because as some critiques might suggest, a great philosophy isn't enough if it's not practical or robust for serious users.
And v3.2, based on the sources, isn't just a minor update. It's positioned as the release that elevates Web4 Studio into something genuinely viable for large-scale, professional, and, crucially, security-conscious partners.
Exactly. v3.2 is where the theory gets engineered into scalable reality. It shows Linkspreed understands that for real enterprise adoption, you need top-notch security, flexibility, and seamless integration.
Integration into existing corporate IT systems, that's key.
Absolutely. You can't just ask a huge company to rip and replace everything.
So let's dig into the specifics of v3.2. The sources point to the first major enhancement as being particularly significant for developers: API Go Live, creating an open, extensible ecosystem.
Yeah, this seems huge. Historically, if you built your community on someone else's platform, you were often kind of locked into their way of doing things, their interface.
Right, the walled garden effect.
Exactly. So the new public availability of the Web4 Studio API changes that dynamic. It shifts the platform from being a relatively closed system to an open ecosystem that developers can actually build on top of reliably. Let's talk about the nuts and bolts of this API. When enterprises hear API, they expect certain standards, right?
Yeah.
Robustness, predictability.
Absolutely. And this API delivers that. It provides access to all the core stuff. User profiles, content feeds, messaging, even the governance logic.
Through what mechanism?
Via standardized RESTful endpoints.
Okay, RESTful. For listeners maybe not deep in tech, what does that mean practically?
It means the API uses standard web protocols, HTTP methods like GET, POST, PROTEAS to make requests. It makes it instantly familiar, predictable, and relatively easy to integrate using pretty much any modern programming language. No proprietary hoops to jump through.
So the underlying complexity of the Web4 Studio backend is essentially hidden behind this familiar standard interface. Right. Which unlocks enormous flexibility for integration. Let's go back to our Global Manufacturing Consortium, GMC.
Okay.
They're not going to just ditch their decades-old internal systems overnight. They have existing workflows, databases.
So how does this API help a company like GMC?
It allows for really deep integration. Maybe GMC needs to synchronize employee data between their HR system and the Web4 network.
Or connected to other business tools?
Exactly. The sources specifically mention connecting Web4 networks with existing CRM systems, customer relationship management perhaps, for managing external supplier interactions within a dedicated community.
Or maybe learning management systems, LMS.
Yeah, LMS is another great example. Imagine tracking internal employee training and certifications from the LMS directly within their Web4 professional profile.
So you could have a seamless experience, right? An engineer finishes a safety module in the company LMS.
And that certification automatically updates their profile badge inside the GMC's Web4 community network.
Maybe unlocking access to certain project groups or specialized discussion forums based on that certification.
Precisely. The API enables that kind of real-time, potentially bidirectional data sync. It creates seamless cross-platform experiences.
And this leads to what you called the crucial developer takeaway.
Right. Decoupling services and custom front ends. This API means the network creator isn't forced to use Web4 Studio's default look and feel.
Which is absolutely critical for strong corporate branding or specialized user interfaces.
Totally. They can use Web4 Studio purely as the secure back end, the data layer, the logic engine.
But build their own front end on top.
Exactly. Developers can build entirely custom branded front end applications, maybe a specialized native mobile app designed for field technicians, providing specific tools they need.
Or a custom web portal for senior executives with specific reporting dashboards.
Right. all while relying entirely on Web4 Studio's secure SNaaS backend for the heavy lifting. Data storage, security enforcement, decentralized logic.
So in v3.2, Web4 Studio effectively becomes this robust, governable data foundation upon which you can build bespoke social experiences.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so moving from that flexibility aspect to fortification. The second major enhancement is something absolutely non-negotiable for enterprise clients. Enhanced security, specifically introducing OAuth authentication.
Yeah, this is a massive upgrade from a security perspective. The sources indicate that before v3.2, external integrations often relied primarily on simple API keys.
And API keys, while they work, have drawbacks, right?
They do. They're typically static credentials. If an API key gets compromised, leaked, or stolen, it's compromised until someone manually discovers it and rotates it. That's a significant potential attack vector.
So how is OAuth different? Why is it the industry standard?
OAuth provides secure delegation. Instead of handing out those static, long-lived keys, it uses short-lived access tokens.
Okay, short-lived tokens. It sounds technical, but you mentioned it's a concept we use daily.
Think of it like the valet key for your car.
Uh-huh.
You don't give the valet your master key that opens the trunk and glove box. You give them a temporary key with limited access. Just start the car, lock the doors, and it's only valid for a short time.
So the external application using the API only gets a temporary, limited token.
Exactly. And critically, it only gets that token after the actual user goes through a consent flow, explicitly granting permission. The external app never sees or needs to store the user's actual login credentials, like their password.
That's a fundamental security improvement right there.
Absolutely. It hardens the whole system significantly.
The sources also mention sophisticated token lifecycle management. What does that entail?
It means the tokens don't last forever. They have configurable expiration times. This forces the external application to periodically re-authenticate, proving it still has legitimate access.
And this can be customized.
Yes. For a really high security environment, maybe like a financial trading community using an integrated app, you might configure tokens to expire every, say, 15 minutes. Very tight.
But for our GMC internal network, maybe integrating with a less critical tool.
You might set it to 24 hours, balancing security with user convenience. This customizable lifecycle lets the network admin tailor the security posture precisely to the data's sensitivity.
But what if something goes wrong? What if an app is compromised or an employee leaves?
That's where another crucial element comes in, the power of instant revocation.
Meaning
The user, or more likely the administrator, can immediately kill an application's access. They can revoke that specific token instantly.
without affecting the user's main login or other apps they use.
Correct. If GMC's security team spots suspicious activity from, say, an integrated analytics tool, they can cut off just that tool's access immediately without disrupting anything else. It gives them fine-grained control.
That's real user agency and administrative power.
And there's one more piece to this OAuth puzzle, granular scoping.
Okay, scoping. So it's not just all access or no access.
Exactly. Using the standard oath scoping model, administrators can define precisely what data an external application can see and what actions it's allowed to perform.
Can you give an example?
Sure. You could grant an auditing tool read-only access to certain logs. You might give an internal announcement bot posting access but nothing else, or grant a system management tool broader admin rights.
So you establish these clear boundaries of trust for each integration.
Precisely. And it minimizes the potential damage, the blast radius, if one specific application ever does get compromised. Its access is already limited by its scope.
Okay, that covers the big technical upgrades, API, and OAuth. Now, v3.2 seems to shift focus toward the business side, towards attracting serious partners.
Yeah, the third major enhancement is about transparent partner management, specifically with an ROI calculator.
ROI, return on investment. This sounds like Linkspreed directly addressing the needs of enterprise decision makers, CFOs, CEOs.
Exactly. Big companies and serious investors, they operate on projections, risk assessment, and clear financial justification. You can't sell them on tech alone. You need to build the business case.
So this calculator aims to provide that clarity.
Yes. It transforms Web4 Studio from just a cool piece of technology into a financially understandable and justifiable enterprise solution. It builds trust.
It takes the guesswork out of adopting this new SNaaS model. The sources say it focuses on 3 pillars of clarity.
That's right. The first, and maybe most basic, is pricing clarity.
Just knowing what it's going to cost.
Exactly. Partners need immediate, clear, upfront information on the cost structure, not just for initial setup, but crucially for scaling up to potentially tens or hundreds of thousands of users.
No hidden fees, no complex, opaque usage metrics that suddenly bite you later.
Right. Predictable operational costs are essential for budgeting and planning.
Okay, pillar 1, clear pricing. What's the second?
The second is commission modeling. This is vital for partners who might build on top of Web4 Studio and then resell specialized access or features.
Like a company creating a specific solution, say, a network tailored for legal compliance firms, built using Web4 Studio as the base.
Exactly. That partner needs to know precisely what their commission structure is. If they sell subscriptions to their specialized network, what percentage do they keep versus what goes to Linkspreed?
Clarity on that is crucial for them to forecast their own revenue and make sure the incentives align for long-term growth.
Absolutely. It avoids disputes and makes the partnership financially transparent.
And the third pillar, the real bottom line driver.
ROI projection. This is where it all comes together for the business case.
So the calculator lets partners actually project their potential return on investment.
Yes. They can input various factors, things like their projected user growth rate, maybe cost savings they anticipate by retiring older communication tools.
The costs of implementing specific custom features they need, their ongoing operational overhead.
Right. And based on those inputs, the calculator provides a reliable projection of their potential ROI over time.
Which allows our hypothetical GMC to go to their board and say, look, adopting this Web4 Studio solution isn't just a tech upgrade. Here's the projected financial benefit.
Precisely. It answers the crucial question, is this technology worth the investment and the switch? It shifts the conversation from interesting tech to potential business transformation.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's move to something a bit different, innovation built specifically for this decentralized context. Micro AI integration.
Yeah, specifically a model they call LSW4-270M micro hashtags.
That name definitely tells a story. Let's break it down. Micro. What's the significance of calling it micro?
And that 270M.
Right. 270M probably refers to the number of parameters in the model, 270 million.
Which, in today's world of giant AI models with billions or even trillions of parameters, is deliberately small.
Okay, so micro isn't just marketing fluff. It's a design philosophy.
Exactly. It prioritizes high speed for inference, getting results quickly, and, really importantly, minimal computational load. Low resource usage.
Which is critical if you're running things in a decentralized way, right?
Yeah.
Or on less powerful edge devices. You can't rely on constantly calling out to some massive power-hungry AI in a central cloud.
Precisely. It avoids the latency issues and the potentially huge costs associated with using giant, centralized AI models for every little task within the network. It's about efficient, responsible AI designed for this kind of architecture, high speed, low overhead.
Built for network resilience and performance. Okay, so what does this micro AI do? The name mentions hashtags.
Its function seems very specific and practical, intelligent hashtag generation.
So it's not writing posts or generating images.
No, it seems much more focused. It's a tool designed to tackle a core usability problem in any growing network. Content discoverability and organization.
Making sure people can find relevant information easily.
Right. If someone posts content, the AI suggests relevant hashtags automatically, making it easier for others to find later and for administrators to categorize things.
I can see how that would be crucial for our GMC example again. If they have thousands of technical reports, engineering documents, safety updates, accurate tagging is essential.
It helps users zero in on niche topics quickly, and it helps the admins manage and moderate the content flow effectively. It improves the signal-to-noise ratio.
So it's a really good example of using AI strategically within a decentralized system. Targeted intelligence that boosts usability without creating a huge processing bottleneck or relying on centralized compute power.
Well put.
All right, that brings us to the fifth and final major enhancement highlighted for v3.2. And this one tackles maybe the biggest potential hurdle for widespread adoption: ease of use.
Yeah, effortless network creation with AI assistance.
Because if you have all this amazing, secure, flexible technology, but it takes a team of developers weeks to configure and launch,
adoption is going to stay limited to the highly technical crowd. So v3.2 aims to dramatically lower that barrier to entry, making the SNaaS promise accessible beyond just developers.
How accessible? The sources make a pretty bold claim about speed.
They do. They suggest users can launch a fully functional social network in literally a matter of seconds, using an AI-guided setup process.
Seconds? That's staggering. That speed to market could be a massive advantage.
Think about it from an enterprise perspective, like our GMC. Maybe they need a dedicated secure space for a new short-term R&D project.
Instead of weeks of IT planning and provisioning.
They could potentially spin up a dedicated policy-compliant network almost instantly, test the structure with the core team, get feedback, iterate really quickly. It enables agility.
So how does the AI make this happen so fast? Is it actually writing the network code on the fly?
No, it doesn't seem like it's writing code. It's more about guiding the configuration decisions based on simple user input.
Okay, so the user provides some basic info.
Right. You give it the network's name, its primary focus, maybe secure compliance reporting for finance team or internal innovation incubator, perhaps the desired overall security level.
And the AI uses that too.
To assist with the initial setup choices, it helps determine which default features should be activated, suggests initial content policies or moderation structures based on best practices for that type of community.
Maybe recommends appropriate starting user roles and permissions.
Exactly. It leverages knowledge of common patterns to get you 90% of the way there, instantly.
Wow. So this huge leap in usability really makes that promise, quick, professional deployment, a practical reality for almost anyone, not just seasoned tech teams.
It seems to accelerate the time to value dramatically, taking network launch from potentially weeks or months down to minutes.
It feels like the final piece needed to make SNaaS not just a niche idea, but a potentially mass market professional reality. #tag outro.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this. Looking back at everything in v3.2, it feels like this release really solidifies Linkspreed's position, doesn't it?
I think so. It manages to successfully weave together that core SNaaS idea of autonomy and decentralization.
With the kind of robust enterprise-grade tools that serious organizations actually need.
Absolutely. They seem to have bridged that gap between the initial philosophy and what's required for professional deployment. We saw that clearly with the public API.
Right, enabling custom front ends, deep integration with existing enterprise systems.
And the oath security. That industry standard approach is just table stakes for high stakes corporate or institutional adoption. You can't compromise there.
And they managed to combine that professionalization with some smart efficiency innovations too.
Like the micro AI, specifically tailored for performance in decentralized setups, not just throwing generic AI at the problem.
And that instant setup process, removing the huge technical barrier to just getting started.
Yeah. So the overall message coming through the sources is pretty unequivocal, I think. Web4 Studio, especially with v3.2, is now offering a genuinely compelling, professionally sound, and technologically mature alternative to the legacy social giants.
They're providing the necessary plumbing, the infrastructure, for independent social media to actually take root and flourish at scale.
It feels like validation for the idea that the future of online communities really could belong to those who control their own data, their own destiny, their own algorithms.
And version 3.2 is like the engine upgrade that makes that independence drive viable, not just for niche groups, but potentially for global corporations, educational institutions, everyone.
It really broadens the potential reach.
So here's maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. Building on this idea of speed and specialization that v3.2 enables.
Trigger.
If that barrier, the technical and financial hurdle to launching a powerful, secure, policy-compliant, specialized social network has really been crushed down to potentially just seconds.
Yeah.
What kinds of communities might become viable now? Think about hyper-local neighborhood networks, maybe highly regulated industrial safety forums, professional guilds with strict certification needs, things that Web2 platforms were just legally or architecturally unsuited to host securely. What new niches will emerge?
That's a fascinating question. What becomes possible when the infrastructure cost plummets?
And maybe a related thought. What does this potential explosion of thousands of specialized, autonomously governed networks mean for how we find information, or even for what we consider truth online?
If every community uses its algorithmic autonomy to define its own curation standards, its own priorities, how do these potentially very different information spaces coexist?
Will they remain isolated bubbles, or will new ways emerge to connect and share knowledge across them in this decentralized landscape?
Big questions. Questions that could really define the next decade of how we interact and build society online.
Indeed. Always fascinating to explore these sources with you.
Likewise. A lot to think about there.